What's up guys, this will hopefully be a relatively quick ramble. This is going to be on the subject of color neutrality for 3x3, and more specifically, if you are color neutral for 3x3, which is a very good thing, why I think you need to take planning first pair seriously. It obviously has look-ahead benefits. I shouldn't have to explain that, and obviously, you know, the more you have planned in inspection, the less you just have to look for later in the solve. I want to approach this from a bit of a more motivational angle. So I'm going to be comparing color neutrality to not being color neutral for 3x3, within the context of CFOP, obviously, and once again through the framework of two-handed solving, which is what 99% of these videos are about, if you haven't figured it out. So we'll talk about assuming you are color neutral, but you're not planning first pair either because you find it too difficult. Maybe your cross solutions aren't efficient enough to really allow you to do that, or maybe you're just using like 4 seconds of inspection and you haven't really made the effort yet. So let's compare a color neutral solver to a not color neutral solver for 3x3. So someone who's either solving on just one color or solving on 2 opposite colors, since that's, you know, the most common case for people. I think it's rare for someone to be doing 2 adjacent colors or like 4 color cross where they don't do like red or orange, for instance. So we're just talking about white cross only, or white yellow, or, you know, replace white with blue or blue green, etc., etc. So why do I think planning a first pair is important? Well, if you think about it, and this might be a bit of another controversial opinion from me, I hope my logic makes sense here, but if you are a color neutral 3x3 solver, the way you filter for F2L pieces will be different to how a single or dual cross solver filters for F2L pieces. And I'm hoping someone like either Patrick Ponce or Seung-Hook Nam can confirm or deny this, since they have both gone from dual cross to full color neutral. And maybe their experiences line up with my theory. For full disclosure, I've always been color neutral for 3x3, so I don't really know what it's like to be fixed cross, although I do know what it's like for other events, for example 4x4, and I might talk about that in a sec, because I think that could be quite useful. But anyways, with CFOP, so let's say we have Cuba A, and Cuba A is color neutral, uses CFOP, doesn't plan first pair because he doesn't really care, you know, fuck it. And then we have Cuba B, who only does white-yellow, and they also don't plan first pair, because it's a little bit harder, but also, like, they can do it, it's possible. So who between the color neutral solver and the not color neutral solver, who do I think has the big advantage as a solver? Honestly, I think Cuba B would be a little bit faster for the recognition benefits, and the reason I say that is because the way they filter for F2L pieces, they have a lot more of a sense of what they're looking for, because they don't really think in terms of like filtering out the last layer color, which is, I think, how a lot of color neutral people, I guess, like see F2L. Like, they're not really so much scanning for specific F2L pieces as much as they're like filtering out useless pieces. So for example, if they solve on red cross for one solve, they will, in their like subconscious mind, they'll be looking, I mean, they'll be looking for red pieces obviously, but they'll also be heavily filtering out their last layer color, so they'll be filtering out a lot of orange pieces. Whereas someone, so Cuba B, let's say they're also solving on red cross, but they only ever solve on red and orange, they're also still filtering out that last layer color, but the way they like see the F12 pieces, because they're so much more familiar with, pardon me, looking for those pieces, as in looking, you know, for the 4 specific edges, so like on red cross, you know, these 2 white ones, the white green, white blue, this one and this one, it'll make their recognition, in my opinion, superior to that of a color neutral solver. Again, I would like to hear thoughts from someone like Patrick or Seung-Hook Nam, but I'm of the belief that if you are, you know, heavily used to solving on 1 or 2 colors, especially 1 color, to a slightly lesser extent 2 colors, then the way you like think about F2L, you'll have like a different like filtering system to that of a color neutral solver, which I think gives you a very slight but real advantage. And I think if you can't plan first pair and you're color neutral, then in the long term you're going to be doing worse than people who aren't color neutral and also aren't planning first pair. So I think you should take that seriously, because I think when it comes to being color neutral for 3x3, like, the one move you save on cross really isn't that huge of a deal, especially when you consider the fact that usually someone who's a dual cross solver, they will, if they're at the same speed you are, there's a good chance they're a lot better at dealing with bad crosses because they encounter like more difficult cross cases on a more frequent basis than someone who's color neutral. There's usually, for most scrambles, there will be like a kind of easy-ish cross solution. And I think that just kind of naturally weakens your skill to, you know, deal with bad crosses. I know I've had to kind of work on that myself. And then on top of that, the recognition, just the way you think about F12 will be a lot different to that of a 1 or 2 color solver. So basically, I think if you're color neutral for 3x3, and you're at a decent enough level, like you can plane your cross in inspection, and especially if you can do so in like 4 or 5 seconds, you should really take planing first pair seriously because that's kind of where the advantage of color neutrality is. So that's really all the ramble is. I just think if you are color neutral for 3x3 and you're not averaging like 25 seconds, there's a very good chance that planing first pair in inspection will be the thing that makes you faster. And I mean a lot faster because I've said this in previous rambles and I will say it again. Just about every client I've had who has successfully, you know, gone from not being able to plan first pair to planning it a lot of the time, if not all the time, they've all kind of like leveled up in the sense that they've gone from like their 1 barrier, maybe they're averaging 14 or 15, and they've kind of shot all the way up to like in the 13s or even in some cases like 12 to 11. And then for some of the faster guys who are like sub 10, when they start taking the first pair more seriously, they're usually very close to sub 9, if not already sub 9. So if you're color neutral, I think you should definitely put in the work. Otherwise, you're kind of just, in my opinion, you're wasting the benefits of color neutrality if you're not planning first pair. That's pretty much where I'm coming from, because all the other advantages is just slightly easier crosses. And again, it's one move, and it's really hard to call an advantage when, practically speaking, having easier crosses a lot more often, in my opinion, weakens your cross-solving abilities naturally. It doesn't necessarily have to if you put in like a lot of focused effort, but I just think, you know, for a lot of cubers, the way they practice is they just kind of grind out solves. They're not so much doing analytical work or, you know, algorithm learning and like really trying to focus on their fundamentals. So naturally, someone who only solves on white and yellow, they're going to encounter crappy cross cases a lot more often, and they're just naturally going to be forced to think of better solutions, whereas a color neutral person, what I've seen anecdotally speaking is that they're usually a bit worse at dealing with bad cross cases, or even average cross cases, honestly, because they can just kind of get away with it. So that's it for this ramble. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you practice first pair in inspection. It's important, I promise. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.